himself call. And when the police arrive, he stands there and he talks to the police. And he tells them, hey, my dad's in there. Travis, why didn't you go in there? Why didn't you go in the house? He's like, I'm not going in there. I'm not going in there. When this guy did this, that was enough for me. I'm staying out here. It's a reasonable thing to do. Ultimately, Travis calls police, and we hear what he tells police instantly on the phone. We've had a string of burglaries, a lot of burglaries and break-ins. That's what he tells them. That's what's in his mind almost from the very beginning. He startled me. He reached into his pocket. Didn't know if he was armed or not. It looked like he was acting. He was. He's sneaking behind a bush. He also tells us he had a pistol stolen about a month ago. This is what he's saying, and you hear him breathing. And the operator says, you all right, hon? Yeah, he just startled me. That's real. That's a real experience with the guy going into a house after being seen at night with headlights and reaching and then turning around and going into a house that's not his. Where is the logic in that? And Travis then stays, talks with the officer, and then sees the video and sees this gentleman just walking around the house like he didn't just get stopped, caught, and seen and have this interaction with Travis like it never happened. He's just walking around the house very calmly. And Travis feels that that is so bold and brazen to do that. It frightens him about this guy. It worries him about this guy. That's real, is what happened. What happens next is the two officers show up and being told what they've been told, that the guy acted like he had a gun and that he went into the house, they pull out their firearms and start going through the house, looking and shouting and calling with their guns out because they might need to protect themselves. Are they committing an aggravated assault when they do this? Are they committing a false imprisonment when they do this? No, they're searching, looking, and trying to apprehend whoever's in the house who may be armed. And then everybody meets outside and they talk. And this is where Travis gets the rest of the information. Aside from his own personal experience, he and his father talking to Officer Rash, Diego Perez, Matt Albenzi, Ronnie Olson, and Brandon Gregory, the officer who also works with Glenn County Police. They talk that night. And they talk about what's been going on. And Travis gets to see the rest of the video and he's like, yep, this guy is that guy. It's all the same guy. Been break-ins, been a lot of burglaries going on. He knows that stuff's been stolen already. And they have a conversation, and you heard part of that conversation from the transcript. Rash says, well, we haven't actually seen him take it. It's because there was no camera on it. But I guarantee you, if one of you left your bag in this room, and we all went out into the hallway, and then I walked in here, and you saw me walk in here, and you never saw me leave. And when you come back in, you walk in, you go, where's my bag? Well, nobody else came in here, but Jason did, and the bag is gone. And oh, look, there's a back door. Is it reasonable to believe that I may have taken your bag? Of course it is. This is a burglary. He says, haven't seen him actually take anything? Yeah, criminal trespassing, officer arrested. Yeah, at the very least. Travis is thinking about Ahmaud Arbery. He's thinking about what must be in his mind in order for himself to try to figure some things out. Travis knows that he caught Ahmaud going into the house. He knows that. And so Ahmaud should know that Travis knows that. He knows that Ahmaud has been down on the dock, and that Ahmaud should know he's been down on the dock. And he's been on someone else's property. He's got to know that by now, Travis is thinking. He knows it's not his home or his house under construction. He knows that he's been caught sneaking around the bushes. Travis is the one that caught him. He knows that there's been a confrontation about that. He knows, he believes Mr. Arbery's got to be, this guy, this man has to understand that these things have taken place, that he had headlights on him, that somebody was trying to talk to him about why he was out after dark in front of this house, and he didn't respond. If I say to one of you, hey, how are you doing? And you just look at me and you walk away, you know you've looked at me and walked away. You know that that's part of what's happened. And he still went in the house after being confronted in the dark. And then he looked around. He knows that he's in the house looking around. And eventually, that he'll be seen on the 23rd going in the house, and that people were trying to talk to him, and that he's not answering anybody any questions. And ultimately, he knows that the police are on the move. Travis knows these things must be in Mr. Arbery's mind because they were part of the very real experience that he had with him. And because of that, Travis is starting to believe and expect certain things in return. Obvious, ordinary, natural things that should happen in return. To constitute the offense of burglary, it's not necessary that a break-in happen, that something gets broken. If you recall, all the questions by the state of the witnesses, well, was anything broken? Was a window broken? Was a door broken? That's not what's required for the law. Those questions are meaningless, and they are red herrings. Nothing has to be broken. You just have to break the plane of the structure to constitute a burglary. Then, you don't have to show that an actual theft had been committed. Nothing actually has to be stolen. You just have to enter with the intent to steal something. Where do we derive a person's intent to steal something from a house? Well, they certainly go into a house that isn't theirs, that contains valuables, and they do it at a time when they shouldn't be doing it, and under circumstances that are very problematic, including running from other people who see you. Lastly, Larry English's deposition. Mr. English couldn't be here, he's very sick. Watching a lot of deposition is a hard thing to do. The basics of this deposition. You made your neighbors aware, the ones that we've mentioned, Al Benzie, Greg, Ronnie Olson, you made these guys aware that you had stuff stolen out of your boat. Yes, and in fact, you wanted your neighbors to help you catch the guy. Yes, Diego. I wanted Diego to catch this guy. You never told them at any point, hey guys, I'm sorry, it wasn't stolen when it was at my house. It was stolen when it was off property. You never told them that, did you, Mr. English? Never told them that. You never announced it on Facebook. You never announced it on Next Door Neighbor. You never corrected what you now say is it was stolen off-site somewhere. You never told your neighbors that. He says no. So then, therefore, Mr. English, to your knowledge, they were left with the impression that stuff had been stolen from your boat at 220 Satilla. I guess so. What was Ahmaud Arbery doing in Satilla Shores from October 2019 to February 2020? There is no evidence that Ahmaud Arbery ever jogged or exercised in Satilla Shores. Not one friend, not one family member, not one eyewitness, even Rash going door to door. There is no evidence whatsoever that Satilla Shores was a place of exercise and jogging for Ahmaud Arbery. Officer Rash testified that by December 19, he knew Larry had a cooler stolen, electronic equipment stolen from the offshore boat while it was parked in the RV garage. And Bob said, that's a burglary. A burglary had been committed in this residence. And he said, that's right. But it was never reported. Like, we didn't have a report about it, so I didn't really investigate it. But that is a burglary. and he has admitted that to you as well. February 23rd. Mr. Olson's surveillance camera shows that Mr. Arbery walked into the neighborhood. Didn't run. He then stood in the yard and put his hands on his hips, looked around like this, and then went into the residence. Matt Albenzi was doing work in his yard, and he saw this gentleman who resembled the gentleman who had committed what they thought was a burglary in that residence. He shut down the work that he was doing, put a gun in his pocket, grabbed his cell phone, and he walked all the way up the street to the corner where Jones meets Satilla, where he keeps his mailbox. And he stood there right next to this tree, and he called 911. At some point in the video, when you see Mr. Arbery run out, you'll see he passes right through the window. And Mr. Albenzi is standing right there on the phone calling the police. His behavior then changes. Instantly, Mr. Arbery is at a full sprint, running into the neighborhood. Running into the neighborhood. Which this thing is going to infer means he's going on his regular job. No, because running out of the neighborhood is a problem. It's a problem now because there's a guy standing there on the phone looking at you back in the same residence that you've been caught in now 3 times. Caught meaning on camera, and police coming, and searching with lights, and Travis McMichael, and to return to that house in the middle of the day, like that, after being run off. Imagine going to visit a house under normal circumstances. Oh, this house looks like one we might want to buy. I'm going to go in there. Then somebody comes up to you with headlights and tries to stop you from going into the house and confronts you about it. Are you literally ever going to go back to that house again? It is unreasonable to think that he's going back there for some lawful purpose after being run out of there 3 times before. So he doesn't run out of either of the entrances to go back across the street where he lives. He runs deep into the neighborhood. Someone has called the police. Now, Travis has told you, nothing has erased from his mind about this individual in the 2 weeks between February 11th and February 23rd. It's all still there. And while he's sitting in his home, his dad comes running in the house and says, the guy who's been breaking in down the street is back. He's running past. Get your gun. Travis and his dad carry their firearms for protection wherever they go. That's what they do. The law allows them to do it. They have permits to do it. Travis testified he had a concealed permit at one point. The law allows this behavior. Travis comes out to the street. He looks down the street, right across. Here he is at 2:30. He comes out here. Mr. Arbery has already run past. He comes out here. He looks down the street from where the house is and sees Mr. Matt Albenzi, who is walking towards him, and eventually, after a couple houses, goes like this and points down the street. It is reasonable to conclude that based on what his dad said, who just came running in the house, the guy's back who's broken in, to come outside and look and see Mr. Albenzi, who he knows, who he's talked with, who he's shared thoughts and feelings about the person breaking in the house, is now saying, go that way. The guy is back. To get in his car and go. You cannot act on the unsupported statements of others. The state has characterized that, which is an accurate statement of the law, as Travis's mom. Are you kidding? after all that we have seen, after all that he has experienced, after all the conversation that he's had, after all the videos that he's seen, after what he experienced himself, that he's just going off of what his mommy told him? This is what the state wants you to do something about. This is what they're trying to inject into this case, knowing, despite that Travis has called the police on the white man under the bridge, knowing that Travis called the police on a carjacker or told his police friends when he was in the Coast Guard and a report was made about the white guy that tried to rob his truck, knowing that Travis called the police about his gun being stolen and readily admits, I don't know who stole it, knowing that Travis called the police on the 11th of February. They want to try to reduce this case down to this statement, which is not true. Travis had all of this. His reading Facebook, everything going on at Larry English's house, knowing about what was happening in Satilla Shores, speaking with everybody on the 11th, his own experience, Albenzi signaling, Officer Rash and Matt Albenzi. This is what he carried with him when he left his driveway that day. Reasonable and probable grounds of suspicion. Reasonable and probable grounds of suspicion. Facts and circumstances to warrant a prudent person, one taking care to understand the truth, in believing that the suspect has committed the offense of burglary. Travis believes he's committed the offense of burglary. The facts necessary to establish probable cause for arrest are less than those required to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. It's more than suspicion or possibility. It's got to be a probability, probably. And he said, I had a probability. There was a probability that this was the guy who did it, and here's why I think he did it. And I wrote down every one of the things that we talked about as he testified. I wrote them all down, and they are all encapsulated in that slide that I just told you. This is where the duty and responsibility in following the law becomes intertwined with heartache and tragedy. Because you do have the right to perform a citizen arrest. You do have the right to have a firearm when you make an arrest. You do have the right to stop a person and to hold them and detain them for the police. And there is risk with that. And there are tragic consequences that can come from that. And we can all sit here right now and say what the state has said from the very beginning and what Travis himself recognizes. If he had only stayed home that day, if he just sat on the couch and fallen asleep with his kid that day, Travis told you it's not a day that doesn't go by that he doesn't think that exact same thing. But the law allows the citizens to make a citizen's arrest. And if doing so properly, it is the reason for the actions that follow. Here, you talk about an offense being committed in his presence or in his immediate knowledge. What could be more immediate than February 11th? What could be more immediate than seeing the videos of him in the house and talking with police officers and other people, including hearing from Larry English through others, that he actually had stuff stolen from his property? An offense has been committed, and he knows about it. He's seen everything other than the hand on the equipment that was stolen. If it's a felony and the offender is escaping or attempting to escape, then you can arrest him upon reasonable and probable grounds of suspicion, probable cause. Travis said many, many times it was the totality of the circumstances. That's his Coast Guard brain. That's his Coast Guard brain saying everything that I knew gave me the belief that a crime had been committed. Escape. Private citizen's warrant arrest must occur immediately after the perpetration of the offense, or, in the case of felonies, during escape. Not every person is arrested at the moment they commit a crime. Not every person is arrested by police, because sometimes the police don't get there in time. But if they learn about the person and they have information about the person, escape can happen anytime. Escape can happen later. It doesn't have to happen right at the same time the crime is committed. There's no law that says that. There's no time limit imposed. The police would never be able to arrest anybody. And a citizen is in the same shoes as an officer when it comes to citizen's arrest. So, Travis, leaving his house, decides he's going to follow. That's what he does. He pulls out after his dad crammed into the front seat with the kid seat there, and he follows. And he watches. And he pulls up next to this gentleman. No gun is raised. No violence is ensued. He doesn't get out of the car. He doesn't tackle him. He doesn't do anything. He does what a reasonably prudent person would do. He does what his training has taught him to do, to use leaps. And he says, hey, man, what's going on? Can you stop for a second, please? I just want to talk to you for a second. There is no violence. If Travis wanted violence against this man, if Travis wanted to hurt him or commit an aggravated assault or commit a false imprisonment, he could have done it right then and there. He doesn't. He talks to him. Mr. Arbery looks him in the eyes, doesn't say a word, doesn't have to, but that's information for Travis. Is it so offensive to pull up next to somebody and say, hey man, can you stop for a second? I want to talk to you. Just for a minute. Hold on a second. Is that so offensive? So, he stops. He starts to go back one way. Travis backs up alongside of him, 30 feet away, not pulling in front of him, not pulling behind him, just tries to talk to him. And Mr. Arbery takes off running down the street. And Travis watches him. There he goes. Doesn't take a gun out and shoot him in the back. Doesn't take a gun out and commit an aggravated assault. Doesn't take a gun and try to kill him. Doesn't try to hit him with his truck. He watches him. Watching. So, he pulls up next to him. And he stops again. He says, hey, hold on a second. We just want to talk to you for a minute. Something's going on back there. We want to know what's going on. He's not saying to the guy, I don't know what's been going on in this neighborhood. To do that would do what? It would escalate the situation. So he just says, we want to know what's going on back there. Why is that guy pointing at you? Why is he doing that? Mr. Arbery stops. He looks him dead in the eyes, doesn't say a word, and Travis just says, we want you to stay right here. We're calling the cops. Call the cops. Call the cops. And Mr. Arbery bolts. Now, on the subject of police, Travis told you. Got in the car with my dad. I said, Dad, are the cops coming? Yeah, go this way, go this way. It's very clear. He says he asked his father about the cops being called. They call the cops all the time. This is not like it's a new thing for the McMichaels to call the police. Here, when they say call the cops, now he bolts. And it's on that bolting that Travis thinks this guy knows he's caught. He knows he's caught. Because he's bolting. He's looked at me. He won't talk to me. That's odd. I'm not talking to him in a too aggressive of a way. And he bolts. And Travis stays right where he is. And he watches. He watches what happens between this truck. He has no clue who this black truck is. In terms of evidence, there is no evidence of any communication between these people. Any cooperation between these two people. No help, no assistant, no encouraging, nothing. So he sees this truck and he tells you it's one of a couple things. It's either the guy from up at 220, or it's his buddy, maybe trying to give him a lift, or now that I'm watching him, he's being very aggressive against this truck. He's watching it from 200 feet away, but he's thinking this guy's being really aggressive. There's something off with this guy. His dad says, Travis, go. Dad gets out of the car, climbs in the back of the truck with his rebuilt hip and his medical issues. Travis watches him get in, looks down the street, sees this, takes his gun off the floorboard, puts it up on the bench seat. His dad says, go, get down the street. Travis says, no, I'm not going back that way. Something's off with this guy. I'm not going into that. Well, if he wanted to go commit an aggravated assault, if he wanted to go do a false imprisonment, if he wanted to end the life of somebody, whether it's murder or felony murder, there's another chance. But he doesn't. He just watches. And then he says, I'm going to drive around. The judge is going to charge you on hijacking a motor vehicle. A person commits the crime of hijacking a motor vehicle in the second degree when such person obtains a motor vehicle from an individual without his or her consent. Travis is watching this gentleman try to get in the car in an aggressive way, and he thinks that does not look good. Whether he thinks to himself that's a hijacking or not, it doesn't look good. It looks dangerous. Travis also told you that when he came face to face with Miss Arbery, even though he didn't speak, he looked very angry, he looked very upset, clenching his teeth, but not saying a word. These are the notes I took about it, right in front of you guys. Just wrote it down as he was talking. Stop, please stop. Mad, clenched teeth. It was very unexpected. What's going on? I want to talk to you. What's going on? Police are on the way. And then his dad says, go back. He says, I am not going back there. I'll go from Buford around to Holmes. And that's what he does. He drives around. Now, his dad's in the back of the truck. His dad is old and infirm. He's sitting on this bench in the back of the truck. Travis says he's going with his foot on the brake pretty much 3 or 4 miles an hour. Drives all the way around thinking, I'm not going to go back into this mess down here. I'll drive around. And when he drives around, you've now learned about this dog leg. That black line essentially is the dog leg. You can't see past it. Travis tells you the first thing he sees is Mr. Arbery doing a U-turn.
Welcome everyone here to Live Now from Fox. We are listening in here to the Ahmaud Arbery shooting death trial closing arguments defense is doing. We'll get back to that in just a moment right here, but I want to bring you some other updates as we continue to follow everything happening out of Waukesha, Wisconsin with yesterday's parade incident happened there. At least 5 people dead, 40 people injured after an SUV plowed into people at this Christmas parade. Let's go out right now to Fox 6 Milwaukee for some of their coverage right here at the top of their hour.
Through a barricade and into a Christmas parade, at least 5 people again are dead, dozens more are injured. Here's a live look this morning from Children's Hospital, where we are waiting for a virtual news conference on how the hospital is treating kids from the scene, as well as an update on those who are currently being treated there. At last check, it was 18 kids being treated there. We will bring you that news conference as soon as it begins live at 11. And this morning, the Associated Press is reporting the person taken into custody has been identified as 39-year-old Daryl Brooks Jr. A law enforcement official earlier told AP investigators were examining whether the driver may have been fleeing from a crime when he crashed into those parade goers yesterday. Our Amelia Jones is joining us live this morning along the parade route where all of this unfolded. Good morning, Amelia.
Good morning, Nicola, and I'm right in front of Main Street, where you take a look behind me, there are still emergency lights flashing. There is tons of police tape and even barricades, much like the ones that we now know 39-year-old Daryl Brooks Jr. plowed through around 4:40 p.m. yesterday during that holiday parade. Also, along this parade route, you can just see the remnants of how chaotic those moments were because strollers have been left on the sidewalks, personal belongings, people you could tell dropping everything that was in their hands and just fleeing for safety. We know that 5 people are confirmed dead, more than 40 injured. Those victims, you heard it right there as you said it, Nicola, 18 children are being treated at Children's Hospital. They range from young to old. Fox 6 did speak to witnesses, and they described to us those chaotic moments.
It went through the extreme dancers, the little girls, and then it was silent. everyone was in shock, and then everyone started screaming and trying to pick up their kids off the street.
Milwaukee Dancing Grannies, another group that was involved in this parade, shared on their Facebook page that multiple members of the group were killed last night. The blocking off in the law enforcement presence that you see here, they say that this is going to stay until mid-afternoon. Police continuing to investigate what unfolded last night. We are expecting for a press conference from police to happen here in Waukesha around 1 p.m., hoping to get more answers as to the questions they've asked 39-year-old Darrell Brooks Jr., as well as any potential motive. And again, when we have that information from that press conference, we'll be sure to bring it to you live. Reporting live in Waukesha, Amelia Jones, Fox 6 News.
And that was the Fox 6 coverage there in Milwaukee, and we will have full coverage for you in that news conference slated for 2 p.m. Eastern with officials. But I do want to go out right now to the latest update that is happening live right now via Zoom with Wisconsin hospital officials talking about the 18 children that have been treated so far in this parade incident that happened yesterday.
And we will start with Dr. Gutzeit.
Hi, I'm Mike Gutzeit. I'm the Chief Medical Officer at Children's Wisconsin in Milwaukee. Last night, our community was impacted by the tragic and intense incident at a holiday parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Our prayers and thoughts are with the victims and loved ones during this very tragic time. The children's team responded with their head and their hearts to provide the care and support to children who were injured, their families, and our teens. While we always hope this will never happen in our community, as the region's pediatric trauma center and the largest provider of critical care services in the state of Wisconsin, these are events that we prepare for. Some basic patient information is that 18 children were brought to the Children's Wisconsin Emergency Department last night. My colleague on this call, Amy Drendel, who's the medical director for the Children's Wisconsin Emergency Department and Trauma Center, will share more about our initial response. And then Mike Meyer, the medical director of the Children's Wisconsin Pediatric Intensive Care Unit, will provide a summary of the patients currently in our care. We will not be answering questions regarding any specific conditions of the patients. I'd like to express a sincere note of gratitude. Before, I want to emphasize and express thanks to the community for the effort in their response. That begins with the gratitude to our law enforcement who responded to the incident and was able to secure the incident. I want to commend the efforts of the emergency medical services responders and other local hospitals who successfully stabilized patients before transporting or transferring kids to be cared for by our pediatric specialists. And we offer our support and gratitude to the teachers, the staff, and all the school districts who will be supporting kids and families who were involved and impacted at this event. The injuries from Sunday night will go well beyond the physical and will take time to heal. We all must continue to lean on each other and to encourage those impacted to reach out and use the resources that are available to them. Each of these injuries impacts a family, friends, and a larger circle beyond those immediately injured. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Amy Drendel, the medical director of our Emergency Department and Trauma Center.
Thank you. As an emergency doctor, we're trained for these types of incidents, but you never want to experience them. I want to start by sharing my sympathy to all those who've been directly involved. Children's Wisconsin is a large pediatric emergency room, and we are uniquely equipped to support an event like this. Sadly, like many communities, our region has experienced mass casualty events in the past, but none in the recent history involving such a large number of children. Law enforcement promptly informed us about the incident soon after it happened, and we received our first patient at 5:30 p.m. yesterday. Beginning at that time, we activated our trauma surge plan, calling in nurses, doctors, surgeons, and other team members to help support the care of these children. 18 kids were brought to our Children's Emergency Department, ranging from ages 3 to 16 years of age, which include 3 sets of siblings. Injuries ranged from facial abrasions to broken bones to serious head injuries. 6 of these patients were sent to the operating room last night, and 2 additional patients are undergoing surgeries today. Roughly around 9:30 last night, the patients we saw were triaged and being sent to patient care units, and the Children's Emergency Department started to transition to normal operating conditions. I'd like to echo Dr. Gutzite's appreciation for all the first responders who were fantastic. We all have a role to play in the situation, and I'm proud to be a part of this community and how it responded so well to the needs of these kids. With that, I will turn over to Dr. Meyer, the medical director of the critical care unit here at Children's Wisconsin.
Dr. Meyer, you are on mute.
Good morning. You would think after this many months of Zoom, I could figure this out, but thank you. Dr. Drendel, as said, we're immensely appreciative and thankful for the response of our community. The medical response started on scene with bystanders, EMS, and then our community partners and other healthcare organizations before the children arrived here at Children's. As we've stated, Children's Wisconsin has the largest pediatric intensive care unit within the state of Wisconsin. We have 72 ICU beds. And like our emergency department, we immediately began preparations to receive patients once we were notified about the incident. From a patient standpoint, there were 18 patients who came to Children's, and 10 of them were admitted to the pediatric intensive care unit. I'll briefly go through their conditions, but will not share any specific details about individual patients. Currently, we have 6 patients who we list in critical condition, 3 that are in serious, and 1 that is in fair. We also have 8 other patients that are listed in fair condition that are not in the intensive care unit and are in other units within the hospital. As Dr. Drendel noted, I think it is very important, and it really responds to the family of this situation, is that there's 3 senseless siblings that are currently hospitalized within Children's. And this is unique and truly demonstrates the devastating effects of this on our community. Mental health support has been activated for our families, our children that are involved in this, and also our staff. Social work, mental health teams, and our chaplain teams are all actively rounding in the intensive care unit, as well as other units in the hospital. And it is amazing to watch them and our medical care teams work as a single team to help our families and our children. I'm immensely proud of the teams that we have here at Children's, and I'm amazingly proud of the community that we serve in and that we live in.
Okay, and we are going to take questions now in the chat. Before we do that, I just want to note that Children's Wisconsin has established a mental and behavioral health support line for families who need emotional support. That line will be active at noon today. That number to call for emotional and mental support is 414-266-6500, and that will also be pasted into the chat so that you can grab it. Okay, let's start with some questions. So Dr. Drendel, we have some questions about the initial response to the incident yesterday. Can you talk about what that meant for our teams and what it looked like?
Thanks for that question. We have a surge response, a disaster type response that we practice and is part of the care that we provide in our emergency department. The initial notification gave us the time to bring together the nurses and doctors and providers that would be needed to be able to take care of the large number of patients in a short period of time. And our team was ready to receive those patients. I'd like to point out the patients were extremely well cared for in the field at the initial hospitals. The stabilization was exceptional, and these kids got fantastic care from start to end. Our team responded well, and we were able to transition them to the specialty care that we provide here at Children's in a way that should provide the best possible outcomes for these children.
Okay, and we heard last night that potential blood donations were needed. Can anybody speak to whether or not we need blood donations currently at Children's Wisconsin?
Thank you for the question. This is Mike Gutzeit. Yes, blood is always needed. It's a precious commodity, and during actually even the normal operations on a day-to-day basis, blood is valued and appreciated because of the blood products that are necessary to do the complex care for patients that are at Children's. I would say in situations like this, there can be exceptional needs for blood. So if anybody's interested in donating blood, contact the local blood donation centers, and please take advantage of that.
Okay. And to reiterate, if someone wants to donate blood, they should go to their typical donation site.
Correct.
Okay. Have all of the patients been discharged? Have any of the patients been discharged, or are all 18 still in the hospital? I think Dr. Meyer addressed this. Dr. Meyer, do you want to jump in on that?
Yes, thank you for the question. As of right now, 2 children have been discharged. We are currently making determinations about the ongoing care of the children that are in the intensive care unit, as well as the other care areas in the hospital, and would anticipate that discharges will go through a orderly process as we continue to assess injuries, as well as the mental health and well-being of all of the patients involved in this.
Okay. For the patients that we saw, have we made contact with the family members of those patients at this point?
Yes, the Children's Wisconsin staff have made contact with each of the families, or families for each of the patients, and have provided support for those families during this very challenging and tragic time for them. And that will be an ongoing connection point to guide families through what resources they need during this time.
Okay. Dr. Meyer, this might be a tough one. I'm not sure if you're able to answer it, but do we have any information about which groups of people were admitted to our hospital here at Children's Wisconsin? So I know that there were different marching bands and dance teams. Do we have any information about who those people were that were admitted to Children's?
Unfortunately, much of those individual pieces are still being sorted out. There was a wide variety of different participants in the parade from some of the groups that have been identified in the news that were present and were potentially involved. I would say that this has impacted a great number of members of our community and the groups that participated in the parade.
Okay. And then Dr. Drendel, did you receive patients who were conscious and understanding of what happened last night? Someone from media is asking if we have patients who really understand what happened.
We received patients with the different levels of injuries. Some were conscious, some were not conscious. Their experience and recollection of the events isn't clear to us based on our emergency department evaluation, but will clearly be a part of our ongoing care here at the hospital.
Okay.
I'd like to emphasize this is one of the unique aspects of a pediatric organization that has all the resources to provide support beyond the exceptional care that Dr. Drendel, Dr. Meyer, and the rest of the teams do. It's providing those social workers and others, child life specialists, other specialists who can wrap themselves around the family, provide the support for the patients, and understand the needs of the child depending on the chronological age and development of the child.
Okay. Do we know if this will be for Dr. Drendel, do we know if the children were transported by ambulance or driven by civilians or a mix of both?
I would say the vast majority of the patients that we saw arrived by ambulance. I think most of them came from the nearby facilities, Menominee Falls and Waukesha. Both initially evaluated these patients and identified them as patients who needed a higher level of care and transferred to our facility for ongoing resuscitation and management.
Okay. And as a reminder, as we're taking questions, we won't be able to speak to specific patients or patient information. We can just give those general updates. So someone asked about our facility offering mental health services. Dr. Gutze, I think you just touched on that. Do you want to touch on that again?
Yes. And again, we really appreciate the emphasis on the need to support patients and families beyond the injuries that have occurred. So we have behavioral mental health specialists that are available and able to provide emotional and mental health services to those who may need them. Ashley had mentioned the number, and that contact is available, and we would strongly encourage people to utilize those resources. The needs may vary depending on the timeline. Some people may need resources immediately, some at a later point in time, but having access to those resources is absolutely critical, as we've learned through these mass casualty and other significant events that occur.
Okay, and just to reiterate again, the Children's Wisconsin team has established a mental and behavioral health support line for families who need emotional support. That line will be active at noon today. That number is 414-266-6500. Okay, so I think this one would be for Dr. Drendel. You mentioned that a patient was admitted around 5:30 last night. Do we know when the last patient was admitted?
We continued our disaster response between 5:30 and 9:30 last night, where the vast majority of patients arrived. However, we continue to receive patients throughout the evening as transfers from other facilities until late into the night. So I believe our last patient arrived around midnight. So the patients continued to arrive as their injuries were identified and the ongoing care needs were identified that here at Children's we were able to provide.
Okay, and to reiterate, those patients, the reason it took them so long to get to us was because they were admitted to a different hospital, checked on, and then transferred to Children's for care. Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Looking through some questions here. Let's see if we have any that we haven't answered yet. Can you talk to, let's have Dr. Gutze address this one. Can you talk to the importance of having quick response teams there, teams like EMS and people trying to take care of the patients before they got to Children's Wisconsin? I think we touched on it earlier.
Yeah, and I would like to reiterate that Dr. Drendel spoke very well about the appreciation and gratitude we have to those first responders and other hospitals that provided tremendous support and exceptional stabilization of patients. That is so critical, especially in the first few minutes after an event like this. Providing that stabilization allows the child the best opportunity to have the best outcome. And so the teams that provided that support, whether it was in the field or at other hospitals outside of Children's Wisconsin, did an exceptional job, and the patients that were transferred to Children's allowed the team there to pick up that and that care and continue on the trajectory of care that was necessary, as Dr. Drendel mentioned.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate the EMS providers responded at the highest level in the care of these children. It was phenomenal. Very proud to be a part of this community.
Okay. I'm going to give Dr. Gutze a chance to do a quick closing after this. Just wanted to reiterate that we have that mental and emotional support line for families at 414-266-6500. For updates from Children's, stay tuned to our social media accounts as well as our website, childrenswi.org. And Dr. Gutze, I'm going to toss it over to you for a closing.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for attending this conference today and for the questions that were asked to provide as much perspective as we could at Children's Wisconsin here in Milwaukee. It's important to understand, as we've mentioned several times, and keep in mind the impact these events have on the community. And I want to emphasize that the resources that are being made available to the school districts, by the state of Wisconsin, by the school districts, and by Children's Wisconsin are available to those who need them. I'd like to encourage people again to use those resources. And I'd also like to thank the community for their tremendous outpouring of support to the staff and providers and all the children who are caring for the kids during this very, very difficult time. The words of encouragement on social media, the offers to donate blood, the offers to offer food to our staff who are working diligently and tirelessly to provide exceptional care to patients is genuinely appreciated. This is a community tragedy, and we will respond as a community. So we'd like to thank all of you for that support.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We will be sending out a Dropbox link that has a recording of this for your use. All right.
All right, so the big takeaway there from this tragedy, at least 6 children injured in the Wisconsin parade crash, listed in critical condition. 3 others are in serious condition at this hour. And of course, we will continue to stay on top of it for you right here on Live Now from Fox. Coming up at 2 o'clock Eastern, we will be having an update from officials, police, on the very latest here in this tragedy that happened. SUV slamming into people during a Christmas parade. Everything was normal until the SUV started plowing into people. We know that 5 people have died and at least 40 injured, and 18 children injured as well. So we'll be featuring that for you in just a little bit right here on Live Now from Fox. We are going to step away for another quick 2-minute break. Stay right here with us, everyone. More Live Now from Fox coming up.
A lot of folks ask me why their dishwasher doesn't get everything clean. I tell them it may be your detergent. That's why more dishwasher brands recommend Cascade Platinum. It's specially designed with the soaking, scrubbing, and rinsing built right in. Cascade Platinum's unique action packs dissolve quickly to remove stuck-on food for sparkling clean dishes the first time. Choose a detergent that lets your dishwasher do the dishes. Cascade Platinum, the #1 recommended brand in North America.
With Downy infusions, let the scent set the mood. Feel the difference with Downy.
Book now at dreamsresorts.com.
When our daughter and her kids moved in with us,
Kids, bedtime.
she was worried we wouldn't be able to keep up.
Of course we can.
What couldn't keep up was our bargain detergent.
Turns out it's mostly water, and that doesn't work as well on stains.
So we switched back to Tide. One wash, stains are gone.
Kind of like our quiet time.
Don't pay for water. Tide is concentrated with 3 times the active cleaning ingredients. If it's gotta be clean, it's gotta be Tide.
Parents of kids with cancer have enough to worry about. That's why no family pays St. Jude for treatment, travel, housing,
Or food.
Guess who's feeling better?
Donate now at stjude.org or give wherever you see the St. Jude logo.
Welcome back, everyone, here to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page, giving the top stories, headlines from across the country. We're going to go back out to Georgia right now, where the defense is right now in the closing arguments in the shooting and death trial of Ahmaud Arbery. Let's go to that right here on Live Now from Fox.
That when Travis stopped to talk to Ahmaud, that he did so to commit a felony of aggravated assault. Means every time you're walking in your neighborhood and somebody pulls up a truck next to you and says hi or hey, they've committed an aggravated assault or a false imprisonment. Where's the evidence of that? The last duty that is here is yours. And this is a very, very tough one. You all understand, and I will not belabor the lengths that we have gone to meet you, to understand who you are, to understand your background, understand the thoughts that you have about certain things, and the way that we communicated with each other for several hours to arrive at the point where we felt in our hearts and our minds that you all would carry the banner of the duty and the responsibility that is yours as jurors. This courtroom is sacred. It is our last place for truth. It is where we pull it from the witnesses if we have to, and we present it to you. And we ask that you hold it dear, and that you accept your duty to not erode the law as you sit here and think about what the law allows a citizen to do. It is going to take courage. It's going to take courage to set aside what you think and feel, what may be trying to penetrate you from other sources that you have tried to do your best to avoid, and to focus on the bare facts of this case that have been captured on photograph and on video and have been testified to in this courtroom. It will take courage. In every count in this case, you're going to be asked to make a decision about each person accused. Travis McMichael will have his form, Greg McMichael his, and Roddy Bryant his. And you will be given the option on every one of these charges for not guilty or guilty. The evidence that's been demonstrated to you, I think, is overwhelming, but it doesn't come without hardship on you, consequence for these families. I think the evidence is clear in this case. Travis had spent 9 years in the Coast Guard, search and rescue, policing the water, sometimes 200 feet offshore, going into situations that were very difficult, working with law enforcement, reaching out and extending his hand as firefighter, law enforcement officer combination. For the first time in his life, Travis is now in those waters. He is now the one who needs help. Our goal here has been to do everything we can to dive into those waters, to search for the truth, to pull it from the icy depths and to raise it to the surface. And we have done that. We have done that with Travis McMichael. We have carried him to the surface to you. And now the choice is yours. Will you do as he has done in the past to others? Will you reach out your hand and extend it to Travis McMichael and pull him out of those waters? I think if you've heard anything that I've said, there's only one decision. He is not guilty on all charges. I thank you all for your attention.
Thank you. Yeah, you can just go ahead. Yeah. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are at a point we're going to break for lunch. We'll break for an hour. Or just a little bit under. We're going to reconvene at 1:30. Again, until all of the closing arguments have been made and you have received the final charge of the court, you are not to discuss this case amongst yourselves. So, with that instruction and all of the other instructions I've given you, enjoy your lunch. We'll see you back here at 1:30.
They are taking a 1 hour break. You are watching live now from Fox, everybody. And what we will do is slide away for a quick 2-minute break, and then we'll get you out some other top stories here of the day on Live Now from Fox.
Today, you want data to be secure, and your customers want things to be seamless. With IBM, you can do both. AI helps you monitor threats across clouds, address regulations, and create all new experiences.
Alice loves the scent of Gain so much, she wished there was a way to make it last longer. Say hello to your fairy godmother, Alice. And long-lasting Gain scent beads. Try Spring Daydream, now part of our irresistible scent collection.
I'm Sterling Brown, and I'm here to share my dirty little secret. I do it every night.
Wait a second.
When Cascade says to do it every night, are they talking about
running your dishwasher every night to save water and energy?
Water and energy. Washing dishes under the tap can use 4 gallons of water every 2 minutes. Energy Star certified dishwashers use less than 4 gallons of water per cycle. That's a savings of up to $130 a year on your energy bill. Do it every night with Cascade Platinum. Nobody does it better.
It's like woke up like this, migraine medicine. It's Ubrelvy. One dose can quickly stop my migraine in its tracks within 2 hours.
Do not take withdrawal CYP3A4 inhibitors. Most common side effects were nausea and tiredness.
Ask about Ubrelvy, the anytime, anywhere migraine medicine.
Wow! Do you see this?
I need you, and you, and you.
Yes!
Come on. Amazing.
It's fun.
Hear yourself. Think.
Here for you on Live Now from Fox. Next story, we're going to go out to the D.C. area where officials are coming together to talk about some recent violence that is happening in the district, as well as some Thanksgiving holiday tips there. So let's bring it to you right here on Live Now from Fox.
Oh, wait. Let me tell you about an uncloudy day. Welcome to Bloomingdale. Welcome. Madam Mayor, you are not a stranger to Bloomingdale or to Christmas at its park. We are delighted you and your team are able to share some time here today on behalf of the residents of the District of Columbia. Let me say, for historical context, Crispus Attucks, a black man, became the first casualty of the American Revolution when he was shot and killed in the Boston Massacre. Throughout history, Crispus Attucks has been celebrated not just as one of the first martyrs in the fight for American independence, but also as a symbol of black Americans and residents of the district's struggle for freedom, equality, and statehood. Finally, before I take my leave, I want to call 3 names into the atmosphere: to flow in the wind, to sparkle under the sun, to shine in the moonlight, and to rest in our hearts and memory. Shanae Marie Taylor, George Valentine, and Mercia Bowser. These 3, a goddaughter, a colleague, a daughter of friends, and a sister of the mayor, represent the district's losses to COVID-19. While they may have left us with heartbreaks and tears, they ascended into heaven and into glory with smiles. Welcome again to Bloomingdale, a great community where faith is key, where faith is a part of our culture, and a community where faith brings us together. Our faith is our destiny. I wish everyone a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Madam Mayor, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Let's give the Commissioner a big round of applause, and it's great to see everybody here. I am always happy to be in Ward 5, and I am so happy to see so many neighbors and also members of our public safety team, both ours locally, Washington, D.C., and members of our federal law enforcement team. We're also joined by friends from our package delivery system, and as we approach the holidays, that becomes even more important to all of us. So we will acknowledge representatives from UPS and FedEx and Amazon, I believe, have joined us as well. So today we're talking public safety, and after I speak, you're going to hear directly from the Chief of Police, who will provide us with some tips from MPD about avoiding crimes of opportunity. We will also hear from Chief Donnelly about what residents can do to prevent holiday celebrations from turning tragic. So first I want to say a few words about how we are approaching city in the crime right now, and that's urgently approaching crime. I sent a letter to the community last week about how we are pushing back, especially against violent crime. And as I said then, I'll repeat today, we are literally throwing every resource at this issue at our disposal.